Leslie Joy Whitehead. Leslie Joy Whitehead, the 26th of February, 1895, the 5th of June, 1964, known as Josephine, Joy, or Jo, was a Canadian female soldier during the First World War. Whitehead was one of a small number of women from the Western world to enter the front lines as a combatant during World War I after she enlisted as a man in the Royal Serbian Army at the age of 22. During her time on the Balkan Front, she would go on to work as a military engineer, a guard for the Scottish women's hospitals, and become a prisoner of war under the Bulgarian army following the invasion of Belgrade on the 8th of October, 1915. Early life. Whitehead was born to Charles Ross Whitehead, a cotton manufacturer from Montmorency, Quebec, and Winifred Thomas Stevenson. She grew up with her two younger brothers, William and Pillins, in the city of Trois-Rivières, Quebec, Canada. Though little is known of Whitehead's early years, her pursuits in adult life centered largely around what would have been deemed traditionally male activities. It has been widely reported that in her young adulthood Whitehead took a keen interest in shooting, driving, and the great outdoors. Prior to the start of the First World War, Whitehead spent a significant amount of time living alone in the Canadian wilderness. According to an article from the 8th of January, 1916 in the Manitoba Free Press, Winnipeg, Whitehead lived an outdoor life for a couple of years, in the Laurentian Mountains at Val Morena. The Toronto Daily Star also reported that Miss Whitehead was extremely fond of outdoor life, wore semi-male garb on her tramps through the woods, and could handle a canoe or shoot better than most men. War work. When Canada entered the Great War on the 4th of August, 1914, Whitehead was only 19 years old but already resolute in her pursuit of getting to the front, where she hoped to get fixed as a motor transport or ambulance driver. As for many women whose true desire lay in getting to the thick of the action on the front lines, however, Whitehead initially started her war work away from the firing lines. Traveling to London, England, Whitehead volunteered, alongside a batch of young ladies from Canada, to work long hours over the card index and the typewriter in order to, as the Yorkshire Evening Post reported on the 3rd of June, 1915, keep the people of her own country informed of the condition of the wounded among the Canadian contingent. This newspaper described Miss Whitehead as a lady volunteer of a very different kind because she could do almost anything in the out-of-door life, and was desirous of putting her handiness at the disposal of the military authorities. During the Great War, however, the Western Front was completely forbidden to women. Conflict zones were deemed far too dangerous a place for the weaker sex to be, with some even considering it an abomination that the female life-giver should enter the battlefield, where she stood to witness brutal and unrelenting loss of life. Whitehead was determined in her goal. Like the women doctors of the Scottish women's hospitals, she decided to offer her services to Britain and the Commonwealth's allies, a decision that would ultimately lead her to Serbia. It was following this Balkan country's acceptance of her help that Whitehead became a volunteer engineer with the Serbian Relief Fund in July 1915. With the Serbian Army. Whitehead enlisted as a man in the Royal Serbian Army at the age of 22. Once in Serbia, Whitehead found herself able to freely live life like a man. This liberty was to be cut short, however, when on the 8th of October, 1915, Serbia fell to Central Power forces. By the 3rd of November, 1915, Whitehead was working under occupation in the central Serbian city of Kruševac. According to Dr. Catherine Corbett of the Scottish Women's Hospital's 2nd Serbian Unit, this female engineer had been sent to Kruševac with the Serbian army within which she had enlisted as a man. According to contemporary newspaper sources, Whitehead was acting as a lieutenant in the Veterinary Corps of the Serbian Army, having given up hospital work so she might get closer to the firing line when Serbia's occupation began. Under occupation, Whitehead's deftness with guns and outdoor skills were to prove more vital than ever before and came in particularly useful for the Scottish women's hospitals. Finding themselves frequently targeted by thieves in the form of desperate locals, prisoners of war and enemies alike, the Scottish women's hospitals recruited Whitehead as a guard in the hopes that she would help to deter the near-daily pillaging of resources and supplies. Her handiness did not go unnoticed by the enemy, and by the 24th of November, 1915, Whitehead found herself under the employment of a German doctor, for whom she tended to some large and complicated disinfectors. Prisoner of war. It is unclear what exactly happened to Whitehead between November 1915 and the end of 1916, but by the 7th of January 1916, both the Toronto Daily Star and the Globe reported that Miss Joy Whitehead, a Quebec athletic girl, had been locked up by the Bulgarians. At the time of being made a prisoner of war, the Globe cites Whitehead was captured by the Bulgarians while serving with the British Veterinary Corps in Serbia, a division she had joined owing to her knowledge of horses. Personal life and death. At some point during her time as a prisoner of war, 1916, Whitehead met and married a lieutenant of the Royal Serbian Army named Vukoto Vojinovic from the city of Užice. The pair returned to Canada, where Whitehead gave birth to her first child, a daughter named Mila, in October 1917. The couple went on to have a second daughter in 1922 named Winifred Dana, followed by a son named Miladin, later Dean, in 1923. By this time the young family had traveled together to Naples, Italy, as well as to Patras, Greece. By the 1930s, Whitehead's marriage to Vukoto had deteriorated and the pair were divorced. During this time period, she gave birth to a second son, David John Vaughan. By 1937 Whitehead had remarried a man named George Andrew Vaughan. The pair lived together in British Columbia, Canada, and remained married until George's death on the 9th of October, 1944. It is not known if the couple had children together. Whitehead died a widow in Princeton, British Columbia on the 5th of June, 1964, aged 69, after developing a carcinoma of the stomach. Click on the subscribe button on the YouTube channel, in order to be updated with the latest events on the channel. Help our work by sharing content.